12 years, Cross the Nations have been travelling the globe, carrying a cross and a message of love and hope. They've seen God do the impossible and change the lives of countless people. People think that miracles are just a work of fiction, but it's time now for people to hear the truth. It's time for people to hear the story of Cross the Nations.
So fellas, I think hearing your stories and stuff, we've established that you really do obviously like to spend a lot of time in bars and cafes and stuff like that. So I'm not saying your walking's hard and not grueling, but you know, you do seem to, a lot of your stories do seem to take place in bars, I have to say.
A great story, actually, from Croatia. Where was we?
We were at Belivar.
Belivar.
Yeah.
Belivar. We was at Belivar, and we started walking for our day's walk, and I don't know, it got sort of lunchtime-ish. We were hungry. I think Alan needed the toilet.
Indeed.
And
I did.
we'd like to prefix this amazing story with, and God told us to go into the bar, but no, Alan needed the toilet. So that's how this story begins. And so we went into this bar, leant the cross up outside against the window, and Alan went straight to the front to the girl behind the bar that asked if they did food. And she said, no, we don't do any food. So he asked to use the toilet anyway. So he used the toilet. And on his way out, the girl behind the bar said to him, so what are you doing then? What's all this? What's with the cross? So I said, oh, well, we're walking across Croatia from Zagreb all the way to Osijek, and we're telling people about Jesus, and we're praying for the sick. Now, we don't always say that we're praying for the sick. Sometimes we just say we're sharing the message about Jesus with people along the way. But he actually put in there, and we're praying for the sick. And she said, well, I'm sick. And so, anyway, Alan, you take it from there, because...
Well, yeah, the girl's name was Anna, and she's obviously quite a loud character. So I said, well, if you like, Anna, I can pray for you. And she was going, no, I don't really want to. I said, no, come on, I can pray for you. And, you know, God will touch your back and he can heal you. And she was like, no. I said, look, it won't be weird or anything like that. I said, I'm going to speak in the same voice I'm speaking now. I'm not going to shout or do anything strange. I said, all I want to do, if it's all right with you, I'll just put my hand on, because it was by the top of her neck, you know, the bottom of her neck, top of her back. I'll just rest my hand on there and I'll pray in the voice I'm using now that Jesus would bring healing to you. So she's behind the bar, right? She's actually behind the bar. I lay my hands on her and I start to pray. And yeah, I prayed maybe for like 15, 20 seconds, not long, just 3 or 4 sentences. I've prayed, and all of a sudden she lets out this big shout. I'm not going to shout because I'm going to wake people up in my house, but she lets out this big shout. She goes, "What are you doing?" Now, I'm not being funny. There was probably about 15 people in this bar. Everyone looks round. And of course, I've got my hands on the back of the barmaid, haven't I? So like, what's he doing? Is he grabbing the barmaid? What's he doing? Do you know what I mean? So I said, what? She said, you're freaking me out.
Yeah.
I was going, oh my goodness. Yeah, for a moment, I thought this has gone really badly wrong. Do you know what I mean? This is a disaster.
Yeah.
We're going to get beaten up or something, or at least I will. Michael just disowned me. He won't have anything to do with me. We'll get beaten up and thrown out. Do you know? Anyway, so I said, well, what's the matter? She said, I could feel this warmth and tingling down my back. And she said, the pain's just all gone. This is amazing. Well, with that, obviously she said this and she's loud. Everyone in the bar has heard it. They've all been watching. And I kid you not, people then start coming up from the bar saying, can you pray for me?
It was like a church meeting.
Yeah.
Like we were at the front of the church and people were leaving their seats and coming out to us to ask for prayer. There was one big fella that had just come in through the door just before Alan prayed for this lady. Big guy. And he had massive hands. I remember he had massive hands. He shook my hand and, my hand was like a baby hand in his and I'm sure I kind of come off the ground a little bit when he was shaking my hand, so I asked him, he could speak a bit of broken English. I asked him what was wrong, and he said that he'd had this sinus problem and really bad headaches, and it meant that he couldn't. He's a musician and a singer. He was traveling around pubs and bars and things, and that's how he was making an income. And he couldn't sing anymore. He hasn't been able to sing for quite a while. And would I pray for him? So I remember I just put my hand just above his nose and just started to pray. And there was a popping sound. And he began to say that, that relief was coming, that all of the congestion was just flowing out of him. And that he could feel a relief and the pain going. And he got quite emotional, actually. Wow. And he clearly wanted to talk about something a little bit deeper than just what was going on physically. And we went into a side room that was adjacent to the bar. And he then went on to tell me about what he'd been through in his life and how that as a child he'd been abused. And I think it was Marenko was his name. Alan?
Marenko, yeah.
And so he started pouring out all of this abuse that he'd been through. And I just started praying for him, and he, like a baby, this big guy stooping over me, put his head on my shoulder and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And right at the end of that, he just gave his life to Jesus and
amazing.
Yeah, received the Lord. It was incredible. But there was stuff kicking off while I was in there praying for Marenko. Alan was praying for somebody else in the bar, and then together we were back in the main part and we were praying for people. And there was a couple of girls sat around the bar, and one of them spoke absolutely no English at all, but she was crying, and her friend who could speak a bit of English was just saying to me that my friend suffers with anxiety, really bad anxiety. She's frightened to get a job. She's frightened to even go for a job because she's convinced that she'll always get knocked back, and so she's got a terrible anxiety issue. Would I pray for her? So I just said, can I put my hand on his shoulder? She was fine with that. Prayed for her. Presence of God was amazing. In fact, the presence of God, right from the first moment that Alan started praying for the girl with her back, the presence of God in the place was evident. Not just to us, but I think to everybody in the room. They were aware that the atmosphere had changed. So this young girl, she started crying more, convulsing and crying, much more bitterly. And I just said to her friend, what's going on? What's going on? So she started talking to her and communicating with her. And then she turned to me and said, she just feels a real warm feeling. She feels a sense of love coming over her. So she was actually, while this girl was experiencing God, her friend was talking me through how she's feeling and what was going on in her life. And so this was quite amazing. It was clear to me that God had set her free from a spirit of fear.
Wow.
as she was around the bar. So there was stuff going on in the bar, and it was just a crazy, crazy time in these bars, right? In Eastern Europe, because of the communism regime, because they've come out of that, there's still lots of stuff that's left over from that regime, and they don't turn the lights on very much.
They're really gloomy, aren't they?
Gloomy and dark, and you know, it was like the light of God had shone into that bar. And I remember the bar girl who you prayed for, Alan, who got healed right at the start. She came up to you at the end and said, because we were getting ready to go, she said, "Do you have to go? Is there any chance you could come back again tomorrow?"
Oh, wow.
Really amazing. We saw 3 people come to Christ
Wow.
during that time, and 3 people get absolutely saved and delivered as well.
I mean, so you turned up in a bar, you took the risk and prayed for one lady, and it's like the bar sort of turned into a church service or a healing room. And
Yeah.
I mean, so why that's happening? Do you ever like catch each other's eye and just think, is this really happening? Or is it like you get out the doors and start walking and then just how do you move on from a moment like that? What happens after?
I mean, sometimes during, we're looking at each other thinking, what? But most of the time, it's afterwards we look at each other and think, what just happened?
Well, the crazy thing, Graham, was I'd just gone in for a wee, and we were there 2 hours. And, you know, you don't always know what's round the corner, what's going to happen. So it really shocked us what happened. It wasn't that we were expecting it. We're always like available, but you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So what happened obviously was amazing, and but we were unaware. But it had been like a really funny 24 hours because the night before this pastor had put us up in a hotel in Bellevue, and we'd gone to like a house group in his home. And there was, I don't know, 12, 15 people gathered in his house. And we had some worship and prayer. And Mike and I had shared a bit. And after we'd left, the guy took us back to the hotel. We went to bed. While we were having breakfast the next morning, he rocked up. And he was beaming, wasn't he? The pastor, his name was Darko. And he was really like smiling and beaming. And he was just full of, he knew he had to tell us something. And I said, so I can't remember who asked him, I said, "Yo, what's up?" And he said that evening, after we'd gone home, his young daughter, I think he's got 2 daughters, and the youngest of the 2 daughters, I'm guessing maybe she was, I don't know, 7 or 8 or something like that. She had something wrong with her legs. She couldn't walk properly. And it kind of like they came out at an angle, almost like an X. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what the medical term for it was. But she was seeing the consultant and she was going to have surgery on her legs. And apparently we'd left, we'd gone to bed and what have you. She'd walked into her parents' bedroom that evening and said, "Mummy, Daddy, my legs are better. They're healed." And God had spontaneously healed this young girl's legs, and her legs were completely straight and she could walk properly. Like, I mean, that was just amazing. And we hadn't laid hands on anyone or spoke about healing particularly or anything like that. It was just a spontaneous healing.
And we're sat at the breakfast table, and he comes into the dining room where we were, and he was just like, "I've got something to tell you. I've got something to tell you." It was amazing. And that started the day for us, Alan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That started for us that day.
That's the amazing thing about healing and stuff and what you're seeing. Because, you know, sometimes if someone's got a headache or someone's got something sort of internal and you pray, like, they might have felt the difference, but you can't really see it sometimes. You just sort of trust in what that person's saying. But, like, you know, when you've seen, when somebody's legs were a certain way and now they're not anymore, that's something you can't really deny and something you can't walk away from. And when something's been sort of medically proven that a person was ill, now they're not, and there was no explanation in between. I mean, if you got, Have you got any other stories like that where you saw someone getting healed before your eyes? You could see a difference, or it was pretty.
Yeah, I know Mike's got a story that I think would be really good to share. Is that after I'd left him in Croatia, he finished up in Osijek, and I know he had a meeting there. And the interesting thing was, there's another long story which I won't go into now, but Mike had a mishap at the end of his walk and lost some parts of the cross as well.
I lost the bag to bring it home.
He lost the whole bag with the bolts and everything. And so he had to leave the cross in Osijek, and we had to fly back for our next cross, which was across Serbia, which was a whole other thing. And Osijek's right on the border between Croatia and Serbia. And when we went back, I think we landed on a Friday night. We were invited to a meeting to this church where Mike had ministered before, I think on a Sunday, like months, like, I don't know, 6 months before or whatever, wherever it was. No, it must have been about 3 months before. And this woman had a great testimony of healing. Mike, do you want to tell us what happened?
Well, I just remember it to be a great meeting. And yeah, the presence of God was amazing. I think about 80% of the church came forward at the end to the altar call. And I was praying for loads of people. Tony and Norma, from friends of ours from England, were visiting out there as well. And they came to the church and they were part of the meeting. And so many people came forward that Tony and Norma were helping me, actually. They were helping me as I was praying for people. And it was just a great meeting. And it was just a crowd of people that had come forward. And I was praying for them one after another. And the only thing I remember is that there was a real anointing there for healing.
So tell us, what did God do for you back in March?
3 mjeseca sam imala cistu I izašla pred brata Majka.
For 3 months I've had a cyst, and then I came up front to be prayed for.
Izašla sam za molitvu, nisam ni pomislila da će cista nestati.
I wasn't even thinking that the cyst might be gone.
Kad sam došla kod liječnika, rekao ima samo kanal, ciste nema. Moje lice više nije bilo otečeno. Bog se proslavio.
When I went back to the doctor and I had an appointment for the surgery, he checked my face, and there was no swelling and the cyst was gone.
Dok je brat molio za mene, osjetila sam kao da je nešto presjeklo po licu I onda više nije bilo ničega. Nestala je oteklina.
When Mike was praying for me, I felt as if somebody touched me on my face, and the swelling just disappeared.
Praise God.
Slava Bogu. Praise God.
Amen.
Well, I remember when I went on the first crosswalk with Mike, there for a few days, and yeah, although I did spend like a fair bit of that time in the van because my legs were tired, but I remember going out there and I was in a lot of pain. A couple of days before, I was like, my face was like in agony. I felt like somebody had hit me in the face with a bat. Some people might say I look like I've been hit in the face with a bat, but that's a different story. But I feel like it was really hurting. I've never felt anything like it in my life. And I went to the doctors and she just said, oh, you've got like sinusitis. And I spent a couple of days just like, it was horrible. And you know, like when you're in pain, but you know you've got to do something. And I was in pain and I was thinking, man, and I've got to walk for like 3 days solid. And I was really struggling. But I didn't want to miss it. So I got out there, got on the train, met Mike in Wales where he was. Honestly, I can't remember saying anything to Mike about being in pain or struggling. I'm really not sure. But I just remember that there was a point in the walk when Mike just turned around to me and he said, have you got toothache or anything like that? And I said, I've got something here like sinusitis. He said, it's in my face, really hurting. And I can't remember if it was at that moment or maybe later on, but at some point after that, he prayed for me. Just quite simply prayed for me. I can't even remember what he said or how it was. But I do remember that within the next half an hour, of him praying for me. I had zero pain, and I'd spent like 3 or 4 days in absolute agony, like just not a moment where the pain was like let up, and literally just like in the same time that Mike's prayed for me, like not long after that, it's gone.
I wouldn't have said, you know, the Crosswalk so far, I wouldn't have said that we're great healing evangelists, or, you know, that we've got tons of stories of you know, miraculous healings. I wouldn't have said that that's a hallmark of Cross the Nations as yet. But you know what? I really do believe that we're going to see a breakthrough in that realm, in that particular realm. I think we're going to see some extraordinary things in the future. I have that sense in my heart that, you know, we're about to break through into a greater release of God's power, and we continue on walking across Europe.
I hope that you've enjoyed watching Cross the Nations, the series, and hopefully it's inspiring you and showing you that God still works today. If you've got a story about how Cross the Nations has touched your life, or maybe you've met Alan and Mike along the way, please email us and let us know at hello@crossthenations.com. It'd be great to hear what God's done in your life, and tune in next time for another episode of Cross the Nations, the series.